So we've all either had or heard about somebody who has had a family bracket and either their mom or little sister or somebody who knows nothing about college basketball fills out their bracket and wins it all. And when you ask, how did you do it? What was your method? And they say, well, I picked it because I like these colors or I like these uniforms or they like the mascot. And so today we are filling out the 2024 bracket using mascots. Welcome to Saturday's Warrior, the channel where we talk all things BYU, Big 12, conference realignment, but we also really like talking about jerseys, uniforms, mascots, and so today we are filling out our bracket based on mascots. But the parameters we're using isn't just whose mascot would beat the other's mascot. We're saying which one we like best. And what goes into that for us personally is a lot of uniqueness. And that's one of the great things about college sports is a lot of schools have really cool creative nicknames that go back some over 100 years because of some really interesting story that earned them that nickname. And so we're really giving credit to originality, relevance, and creativity there for these nicknames. So that's how we do it. So there's others that have just fine nicknames, but they're definitely overused, like Bulldogs or Wildcats. As you'll see when we get into it, there are many examples like those. Those will be automatic losses, and we are going to give the nod to schools that have more creative names. So without any further delay, let's get into our bracket. All right, so let's start up here in the East with UConn and Stetson. Now, the Huskies is not a bad name, but it's also not that unique across sports, just in general, collegiate or even high school. It's one you hear. But the Stetson Hatters, and the name coming because they have ties to the creation of the Stetson hat, the traditional cowboy hat. So I think that is very cool. Great story there. The Wildcats of Northwestern, that is such a generic name that is so widely used, so I'm definitely going with the Owls here. San Diego State and UAB have a great matchup. The Aztec, and also being, not only is that a cool name, but it's relevant to San Diego State, who is their proximity to Mexico, the nation where the Aztec were from, and then the Blazers, but it's not the Trailblazers. It is referring to dragons blowing fire, and so I think those are both really cool. But I've got to go with the Aztecs on this one. I like that. Auburn and Yale. So Tigers is a great nickname. I grew up, or I still root for the Detroit Tigers, but I mean, there's already 3 Tigers in the SEC alone, and they could add Clemson, making it 4. So, but here we have Bulldogs for Yale, and you'll see as we go throughout this bracket, there are so many Bulldogs just in this tournament alone, let alone across all sports and nicknames. And so any Bulldog is going to get an automatic fail for me. I mean, it's a cool sounding name, but it is an ugly, ugly dog. I'm sure I've made some enemies with that, and it is just too widely used. So the Tigers get the advancement there. Now, this one hurts because BYU, I think Cougars is a great nickname, much like Tigers, but and it's not nearly as widely used as Tigers, and it is relevant. There are mountain lions all over in Utah, and they are a real threat. So it is a good nickname, but there's 2 Cougars here in this region alone. Instead, we've got the Dukes. There are other Dukes in the bracket with James Madison. But I do think that the Dukes is just a little bit more unique, so I'm going to go with them, even though it pains me. And I almost talked myself into going with BYU right there. But and this next one, Eagles is another one widely used. Illinois, I'll get back to that one. And now we have another Cougar, but since they're going up against Bulldogs, these Cougars do advance. And now this is the toughest one of this region for me. In this first round, we've got the Cyclones versus the Jackrabbits. Cyclones, obviously, a lot of tornadoes in the Midwest. That is a great nickname. But then you have the Jackrabbits, and that is just a little bit more unique. I think it's cool, it's fun, and maybe not as threatening, but I'd like to go with Iowa State to save my bracket a little bit, but I am going with the Jackrabbits here in that one. And so, again, there are, surprisingly enough, in FBS, a few Owls. And so I'm going with Hatter. I know this is basketball, not football, but I can't speak for all of Division One basketball, how many Owls there are. So out of this one, again, Tigers used pretty widely. I like the Aztec, and let's just finish this out. I love both of these, but I'm going to have to go with the Aztecs over the Hatters there. Just like it a little bit better. Also, I mean, Hatter, as cool and fun as it is, Aztecs are just a better image for a mascot there. And then here we've got the Dukes, which they're mostly named because of Duquesne, and so the alliteration there. But then you also have the Illinois Illini, so I know that they're honoring their tribe there. I think this one is, even though that's not my favorite, you have, and maybe I'm biased because you have the Utah Utes, which I just think is redundant. Again, I see what they're doing and I respect that. I think this one, the Illini, is a little more interesting than the Dukes there, and but let's see, the Jackrabbits absolutely over the Cougars, and I'm still going to go with Jackrabbits. So they're making a deep run, which brings us to our first Elite Eight matchup. Who's going to punch their ticket to the Final Four? And in this one, since both of these I think are really unique, I do like the Aztecs. I think that is a really good name, and it's going to possibly help me save my bracket. They've got a much better chance of making it to the Final Four than South Dakota State. So I am going to be a little bit selfish there, but also I think both are great nicknames. Had to use something to distinguish. All right, so let's continue with the South here. With Houston, we have more Cougars, whereas Longwood, we have the Lancers. So we've got another one seed being upset in the first round. And then we've got Nebraska Cornhuskers, which just is so perfect, so on brand, versus Texas A&M. It feels like every ag school at some point was the Aggie. So I'm going easily with the Cornhuskers there. Then the Badgers versus the Dukes. While not only have we already had some Dukes in the bracket, James Madison, their logo also has a bulldog, and so that tie-in with the bulldog, I'm going with Badgers here, which is too bad because that is a popular 12 5-seed upset. Then we've got the Blue Devils versus the Catamount, which that is an interesting one. I looked it up, and it turns out that is just another word for Wildcat. So even though it is a more unique nickname, it is still essentially Wildcat versus Blue Devil, which is just really cool and unique. So I'm going with Duke there. Then NC State, more Wolf. I love the Wolfpack name. And Red Raiders, yes, it's a second technically just Raiders now, but second Red Raiders we've had in the bracket, but I still think that is more unique. And then Kentucky Wildcats versus Oakland Bears. So those are both too widely used, but I think Wildcats, again, that is an automatic loss right there. And so now Oakland gets to advance. And then Florida Gators, I think, is just perfect. Not as only is it a cool nickname, fierce animal, they're so relevant to Florida. It's what we think of when we think of Florida, is just really on brand. Versus Boise State Broncos and the Colorado Buffaloes, both great nicknames, but I am going with Florida there. And then we have Marquette Golden Eagles. I think we've already had some Eagles. Just making them golden doesn't really make it that different, and so I'm going with the Hilltoppers. I did not actually look up the story behind that one. I'm sure it's great, but working our way back up, I am still going with the Florida Gators. I just like that nickname. Red Raiders over generic Bears. And then we've got Duke and Wisconsin. This is a tough one. I like both of these, but I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. And then moving up to the Lancers versus the Cornhuskers. Both good names, but Cornhuskers is just so unique, so great. I'm going with that one, and I'm actually going to... This is a tough one. I think I'm going to go Blue Devils on that one. And then here we got Florida Gators, and I am going to send the Gators to the Final Four there, and that gives us both San Diego State, a 5 seed, and Florida, 7 seed in the Final Four. And sorry, for Oakland, I think I said Bears. That's what I had on my mind, but pretty sure they are the Grizzlies, which is a cooler way of saying bear. So just another reason to have them pass by Kentucky, but I still have them losing against the Red Raiders. Now let's move over to the West. So Howard, let's see here. We've got the Howard Bison and the Wagner Seahawks. If you didn't know those already, you're probably like most other people. Both of those are good nicknames, but Tar Heels, I just think that is a cool nickname. That is what I was talking about when you think of really cool, unique nicknames in college that have a lot of history and story behind it. I don't know at all. It's something about, I think, workers that did a type of work and it was dirty. I don't know the full story. You can look it up. I'll probably brush up on my history on that after this video. And if you know the story, actually let me know in the comments on that. But it's cool. It's known as the Tar Heel State. I just think that's a good nickname. And then moving on, Mississippi State automatically loses as the Bulldog. Plus, Spartan is just a really cool nickname. St. Mary's, the Gaels. So, the people, people that speak Gaelic, versus Grand Canyon, who are the Antelopes, but better known as the Lopes. No offense to the Gaels, but I just think Lope is such a cool nickname. I am going with Grand Canyon with the upset there. And then Charleston are the Golden Eagles. There are, there we go again with more Eagles, let alone Golden Eagles in this tournament. So definitely going with the Crimson Tide there. And that is setting up for an interesting matchup in the next round. Clemson Tigers, again, more Tigers. And then we've got New Mexico Lobos, which I just think is a cool nickname. There's other teams. We've got one coming up with the Wolf moniker, but the fact that this one is in Spanish and it's New Mexico with their ties to Mexico, and I just think that is a cool nickname. Then we have the Baylor Bears versus Colgate Raiders. And so I mentioned earlier, we have the Red Raiders with Texas. Colgate used to be the Red Raiders. Then they dropped the red because they were afraid some people might take offense to that, even though the origin of the name Red Raiders went back to the color of their uniforms, nothing racial about it, but they changed it in the hopes to avoid offending anybody that might incorrectly, misinterpret the name of Red Raiders. So that to me, they still get by Baylor, but that to me, I'm just going to go ahead and do it now, gives a loss against the Lobos there. And then we've got, again, the Wolf Pack, but I like the Dayton Flyers there. I think that is a cool name. And then Wildcats automatically lose. Long Beach State, like Colgate, is another one that, although much more confusing, you'll have to go look it up. There's a long history of a lot of different branding for the school, different names like Dirtbags for their baseball team. They've also had Beach. And then it was originally 49ers because of, just like the professional football team, the 1849ers for the Gold Rush. But because many people in the Gold Rush committed some heinous crimes, they don't want to be associated with that. So now it's 49ers for 1949 when the school was established. Very confusing, very weird. So for that reason, I'm going to have the Dayton Flyers pass over them. But if they had just latched on to Dirtbags, how cool would that be? I could see why they didn't want to, but what a great nickname. I don't know if their baseball team still uses that or not. Tar Heels Spartan. This is a tough one, but I'm going to go with Tar Heels. I just think that is a really cool name. And then the Lopes versus Crimson Tide. This is another really tough one, but I don't know. Normally I'd go with Crimson Tide, but I think maybe the newness factor, just not as familiar with Grand Canyon, the Lopes. I just think that is a really fun moniker there. And let's see. I think I should have thought this through. I'm going to go with Tar Heels there. And then Lobos, Flyers. Flyers, you hear of other teams. Lobos is more unique, so I'm going to go with that one. And then ultimately, I think I'm going to go with the Tar Heels, giving us our first number 1 seed in the Final Four there. And so that one might actually help our bracket out a little bit. Okay, Purdue Boilermakers, which I thought there was going to be a really cool story with that, and it just came from, like many school teams, the headline in some sports article referring to the team once, which is still cool, and it stuck. But they are going up against Montana State Bobcats and the Grambling Tigers. Again, nothing incredibly unique there. I do like Bobcats over Tigers there in terms of uniqueness, but we are going to go with Purdue. And then Utah State, again, any ag school becomes the Aggies. I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs, setting up quite an interesting matchup there. Gonzaga automatically down. McNeese State, in case you did not know, were the Cowboys, which I like that as a nickname, albeit maybe not the most unique. Again, Samford. I told you there's a lot of Bulldogs in this year's tourney. Okay, so now we've got the Jayhawks, even though Jayhawk is made up and they don't completely know where that originated from. And then let's see, Gamecocks versus Ducks. I like both of these. I think Gamecocks, if you I know I said I wasn't going to do which mascot would win in a fight, but because they're both birds and unique, which one would win in a fight? Gamecock. You do have a professional team named the Ducks, so I'm going to go with this one. I think a little more unique, very cool. And then Creighton Blue Jays. I like that nickname, and except there is a pro team. Then you have the Akron Zips, which is fun, kind of fun to say. Looked up, turns out it was because of I think it was Goodyear, and it must have factories or ties to the Akron area, which, if I'm remembering right, but I guess there was a shoe that had a zipper on it, and they were called, and so that's where they got it from, was the Akron Zippers, like referring to the zipper sneakers, and the Zips by short. So kind of a dumb name, but I'm going to go ahead and give them that one over the Blue Jays for just uniqueness and having that story. Then Texas, the Longhorns, which I just think, just like the Florida Gators, this name is just perfect, encapsulates the team, the state, and the branding there, I think, is just perfect. Then you have UVA Cavaliers versus Colorado State. Rams, both very good names, not necessarily the most unique. They're both good, but do exist in pro teams. So I'm going with the Longhorns. And then this is a tough one right here. This is one of the tougher ones. The Tennessee Volunteers, much like the Tar Heels, it's known as the Volunteer State. There's history there. From the state of Tennessee. I believe there were volunteers to go off to war. I don't know which war. I wish I did. I probably should have looked that up ahead of time. Again, Tennessee fans, please let me know in the comments. So I think that's a great nickname. But then you're going up against St. Peter's Peacocks. That is just very fun, unique. So I'm torn on this one. I'm going to go with the upset with the Peacocks. Again, it could just be kind of the newness factor there. Unfortunately, they will lose to the Longhorns, who, again, I just think that name is perfect for Texas. And then the Zips, as fun and different as that is, I'm going with the Gamecocks over them. And Cowboys, great nickname, but not the most unique. Jayhawks, when you hear Jayhawks, you think Kansas. They own that, and it's it really stands out. Even though it is kind of a made-up word, Kansas gets that one. And then Purdue, TCU. Oh, this is tough because both are very unique names. A Boilermaker, a Horned Frog. You know what? I am going to go with the Boilermaker. I kind of like that imagery of a train instead of going with an animal, and so they've gone kind of a different direction with that. And then again, Kansas is made up. I'm going to go with the Boilermaker on that one. Again, maybe I'm also selfishly trying to look out for my bracket. Who knows? Here I am taking the Longhorns over the Gamecocks, and I think I like Longhorns over Purdue. Okay, so now... Okay, what am I going to do? I use the same logic for Florida and Texas. I think both of those just perfectly encapsulate the states. They're both 7 seeds. I'm going to go with Florida Gators. I just think Gator, what a great mascot. Although that's probably more widely used in probably like high schools and things like that. Um, and let's see, the Aztecs versus the Tar Heels. I think Tar Heel is a great state name or school name. It is with the state's nickname as well. And then we've got Tar Heels versus Gators. Ugh. Don't make me. I think again I'm going with Tar Heels just because of the history and the tie into the state that kind of gives it that slight nod over the Aztecs, which I think we're gonna have to use that same logic here over the Gators. And let's see, I don't know. We'll just say 180. I don't even know if I have to fill that out. Okay, so Tar Heels are winning it all on this bracket. It is okay because I am not too worried about this bracket. Competing too much based on all the major upsets that we had. But we will see, just like the little sister filling out the bracket, maybe we'll shock some people. And if Carolina goes all the way, it could be just enough to tip this bracket over many others out there. All right, let me know what you thought of this method of filling out the bracket and how we did. And for you, what is your number one nickname out of all the teams in the tournament? So if you were filling out this bracket, who would you have winning it all? Leave all bias aside, who has the best nickname? Please let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. And even though they lost in the first round due to their nickname, go Cougs!